as we get started, please remember to stay seated, facing forward, and keeping all arms, hands, legs, and feet inside this vehicle at all times. Now, above your head there is an animal spotting gun, so you can see who might be in the reserve today. I can't guarantee we will be seeing all of those animals, but we do have some pretty good luck overall. Just keep in mind that these are the animals' homes, so let's stay respectful of that. No calling out, no whistling, and no petting, no smoking, no eating. We don't want to scare away the animals, nor do we want to harm them. So instead, let's have a good safari, and I'm sure some of you also want good pictures and videos too. Have your cameras out and ready. We won't be able to stop for every single animal. The animals certainly do not stop for us.
Except for when they're in the road.
Oh yes, and of course when they're in the road.
I heard you had a pileup.
Like sport mode or live mode, that would also be highly recommended. Helps you combat those blurry photos you might get. But here we're going to start our journey off in the littlest Harry Forest. This is going to be home to a bunch of the animals that are rather solitary or use camouflage. So as we come around, let's keep a keen eye out. Like on the right hand side behind the bamboo, there's going to be an okapi. The okapi does have striped legs, so it does remind many people of zebras. The okapi's living closest relative is actually going to be the giraffe, however. And for many years, Westerners didn't believe the okapi were real. This was just proven in 1901. On the left-hand side, we're seeing the bongos. The bongos are a type of antelope with tilted back horns, helping them get through thick and twisted underbrush rather quickly. They're nicknamed the ghosts of the forest because they can be rather silent when they move and hard to find at times. Now I'm going to head back to the okapi just for one moment to tell you something kind of fun. The okapi can actually hold in its poop for the first couple months of life, which makes it that much harder to track the okapi. And it also helps to give the okapi the nickname of the African unicorn, because they were just that hard to find and even harder to prove to one another. Something that the bongos and the okapi have in common though is that reddish color of their coat. If you were actually to pet either of those animals, it would turn your hands red, which is kind of cool but kind of gross. Apparently the okapi does feel like crushed velvet as well, which is rather interesting. And with that, we are heading closer to another type of antelope that shares the same type of camouflage as the bongo. We're going to be seeing them on the left-hand side of the clearing, and this is going to be known as a greater kudu. The greater kudu are the tallest of the forest antelopes. They stand at around 5 feet tall at the shoulder, and they have been known to bark like a dog. You might notice that on their bodies are also white stripes. They can kind of imitate light streaming through the forest trees, so this acts as their camouflage. With that, we're actually going to switch it up and head into the Safi River, home to many of the animals that live in and around fresh water. That's what Safi means in Swahili, fresh. So we're going to be looking for animals like the Nile hippos and the pink-backed pelicans. So the Nile hippos spend most of their day underwater, so they'll look more like giant rocks. We are getting a little bit of an easier view of these pink-backed pelicans. These colors get their name from the color that appears most often during mating season. Those pink-backed pelicans are known as colonial nesters, meaning they'll stay together in groups of about 20 to over 100 nests. And on average, those pink-backed pelicans will have a wingspan of about 8 to 9 feet, the same as the canopy above your head. Back to those hippos. The reason why they spend so much time underwater in the first place, though, is because they have super sensitive skin. Water will often help to keep them calm and cool, and so usually they'll hold their breath instinctively for about 8 minutes at a time. And they'll do so by closing their nostrils and even their ears to create a tighter seal. Usually those hippos will sink to the bottom and walk or run. They very rarely swim. And when in a group it's known as a float, like with a B, like a boy, float. On the left-hand side, we're now looking at those Nile crocodiles, one of the largest in the crocodilian family, which includes not only crocodiles, but even alligators. If you were to stand the Nile crocodile from tail to tip, it would actually be about the same height as a giraffe. So think like 15 to 18 feet. And in unusual sitting, the Nile crocodile is going to eat about 250 pounds all at once. This is about half their body weight or so. And it's possible because they don't need to eat every day. Once every couple months is usually enough to sustain that. On the right hand side, we're looking at the baobab trees now. The baobab tree has two main nicknames, that being the tree of life and the upside down tree. It gets these two nicknames as they have no leaves for 9 months of the year, helping to conserve about 30 to 40,000 gallons inside of its trunk of water. Many animals actually use the baobab tree as a water source as well. With that, we descend into the savannah. This is going to be home to some of those most famous animals on the reserve. A bunch of them happen to be non-territorial and known to come together in these pretty large groups to graze. In fact, everything you see is just the first half of the savannah in the first place. Now as we're coming along, we're going to see some Maasai giraffe and some Ankole cattle. The Maasai giraffe, when fully grown, are about 18 to 20 feet tall on average. Spend about 18 hours of the day eating vegetation. And tongues are super long, flexible, and even a little bit blue to help ensure they don't get as many sunburns on their tongues. And a little bit closer to us are the Ankole cattle, one of 2 domesticated species here on this reserve. They have extremely large horns that can get about 6 feet wide. The cattle will use these horns to help them cool down circulating blood through them. Inside the horns is actually a honeycomb-like structure, so they're rather light in comparison to their size. Each horn is only about 2 pounds each. Sometimes the Ankole cattle are known as Watusi cattle. Watusi is actually also the name of the people who first domesticated them. And here on the left-hand side, we're seeing those African wild dogs, sometimes known as painted dogs due to their coat. They're some of the world's most successful land hunters, and they do hunt by running together as a pack. They have success rates of around 90% or so. Whereas animals like cheetahs have a success rate of around 40. While these painted dogs are pretty cute and pretty dangerous, they're also very gross. They roll around in other animals' poop as a treat. No, I do not want to pet them. On the left-hand side, we have some of these bushes are actually reddish sables. And the sables are going to be related to the gray wildebeest around us. The sables are actually the emblem of the Harambe Wildlife Reserve, so they do represent strength. Their horns get about 3 to 4 feet long, which they use during dominance displays, and to ensure other animals do not jump on them. The wildebeest get their name from the Afrikaans words for wild and beast. They're known for sticking together in some pretty large groups and traveling upwards of 1,000 miles, usually following rainfall, so they don't experience too much of a dry season. The largest group of wildebeest found in nature so far had 1.5 million of them all together. Now we are getting closer to those giraffe again, and on the giraffe's heads what look like horns are actually ossicoats. They start off as cartilage and over time they'll harden into bone. The ossicones are how we know that the okapi from the forest are related to the giraffe. All giraffe are going to have these ossicones regardless of gender, whereas only male okapi will have them. And now we're passing that fully red Ankole cattle, and he's the only male out here. So he's got the biggest horns, and from tip to tip they get about 8 feet long. The Ankole cattle were not bred for their meat, but rather as an indicator for wealth. And now we're seeing all this giraffe walking around, and in a group walking, it's known as a journey, but if they were just standing around, that would be known as a tower of giraffe. Standing is how you're most often going to find those giraffe in the first place, though it's pretty rare for them to lay down, unless they feel extremely safe and comfortable to do so. Those giraffe will even stand even when they're sleeping and giving birth, though to be fair, they only sleep for about 30 minutes a day, and it's not even all at once. It's going to be shorter births, I think 30 seconds to a minute at a time. We're seeing some more of those wildebeest here on the right-hand side, and when they're in those large groups, they'll often turn in all sorts of directions so they can get a collective 360 view of their environment. And sometimes they can kick up such a large dust cloud you'll see it all the way from space. A group of wildebeest is known as a confusion. It comes from the sound they make, which is like a soft moo. Think mew mew, spelled G-N-U, G-N-U. We are seeing even more of those Maasai giraffe now. Now every single giraffe does have its own unique pattern. It's kind of like the way we have our own unique fingerprints. And earlier I mentioned how those giraffes will stand even when they give birth, and I didn't really elaborate. So when they stand, it causes those baby giraffes to experience a 6-foot drop, which sounds pretty scary at first, but it's rather necessary because it starts that giraffe's heart. Usually they'll stand and start walking around within the first 15 to 20 minutes after birth.
And then they never sit down.
And from here, we're actually in big elephant territory, but African elephant's going to be on the right-hand side. Now, they might be one of the largest land animals in the entire world, but they are extremely good at hiding. And African elephants are easily identifiable versus other types of elephants by their ears. African elephant ears are actually in the shape of the continent of Africa itself. Whereas, for example, Asian elephant ears are actually way lesser defined. They're kind of just wavy at the ends, unlike these. And you're probably seeing that elephant moving its ears back and forth quite a bit. It's actually done to help them cool down, kind of like a giant fan attached to their head. That can bring the elephant's temperature down by about 15 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty significant with the kind of heat we experience out here. We start coming around these red clay walls, and if you look inside of the walls or even in the floors, you'll notice some markings that were left behind by African elephants. They are highly intelligent animals who have learned to use this red clay in a couple different ways. They'll make a mud-like substance they can spray on one another. It acts a bit like sunscreen. And occasionally those African elephants will even eat the red clay too, because it's pretty high in nutrients like iron that they need. Being one of the largest land animals though, the African elephants have to eat a lot more than that red clay in order to survive. We're talking like around 300 pounds of vegetation a day. And I will let you know we are actually in feeding time right now. It usually takes those wards a little bit of time to make space for all of that vegetation for the animals here to the left. Normally we'd be seeing a giant group of elephants known as either herd or sometimes race, but because they're trying to make sure those elephants have food to eat, they're actually going to be all together in a back area here, so there's not elephants here for a little bit. Usually though, within a herd or a parade, those African elephants are going to be following the direction of the oldest female elephant around. That older elephant we saw earlier is usually also a male who's having a solitary lifestyle because they've just gotten a little bit older and can be rather aggressive with the younger elephants. This helps to just give them a little space. Now from here we're going to be going around the greater flamingos, as these are some of the tallest flamingos in the entire world, right under 5 feet tall. They are known to be a paler pink than most flamingos. They'll still get that pink color from eating brine shrimp containing that protein known as beta-carotene. Most flamingos are filter feeders, and if you look at the island itself, you might notice its familiar shape. Kind of looks like someone we know. The group of flamingos is known as a flamboyance. This flamboyance is a couple juveniles who haven't had the full 2 years or so to develop their pink color yet. With that, we actually enter the second half of the savanna, so as we come around below some of those trees are going to be the white rhinos on the left-hand side. The white rhinos are some of the largest rhinos in the world at around 5,000 pounds each. And they don't get their name from their color, but rather their wide, rectangular mouth. It's a mistranslation of the Afrikaans word "white," meaning wide. As we come around on the right-hand side are also some ostrich. The ostrich are those large birds who don't fly, instead they run with top speeds of around They run around 40 miles an hour with top speeds, and all of the ostrich are female here in Harambe. You can tell by the color of their feathers. They're more brown and gray, not so black and white. Now, unlike other types of rhinos or even other animals, white rhinos are not solitary. They'll stay together in a group known as a crash. This crash has a few babies. They range in age from about 1 to 2 years old, and all of them are at least 500 pounds. We're going to be in big cat territory, so we're looking for cheetahs here. There are only 2 species of rhinos left in Africa, and this is due to hunting. They were hunted for their horns, which were believed to have medicinal properties inside, and over time, we've learned that the horns are made out of the same materials that our hair and nails called keratin. One rhinos, however, don't actually have any natural predators, so their endangerment is due to human intervention. So like I said, we were looking for those cheetahs, and it looks like we found a bunch. Those cheetahs are some of the only big cats to be active during the day. They have dark marks running from their eyes down to the sides of their nose, keeping the sun out of their face. And in general, they have about 2,000 spots on their bodies. A group of 3 or more cheetahs is known as a coalition. And another way that cheetahs are different from most big cats is that they don't roar. Instead, those cheetahs will tend to purr or sometimes even chirp. So if we are talking about roar, so let's go around these rocks known as kopis. Kopis are going to be used by lions as a resting point, as a vantage point. Lions are most active at night. Part of this is due to their eyesight, so during the day, lion eyesight is equivalent to humans. At night, it gets about 6 times better. As we come around, you're seeing the rarest animal here on the reserve to the left. This is known as a bontebok. The bontebok is rare for kind of an unfortunate reason. It comes from their beautiful coat, which can shine a little bit purple when the sun hits it. They were hunted for that coat until there were 17 bontebok left in the world. A farmer had to step in to bring those remaining bontebok into his farm for safety, and later on a sanctuary where they were able to repopulate. Unfortunately, those bontebok haven't really been brought back into the wild yet. So for the most part, they live on protected lands like here in Harambe. Now that lion is actually going to be laying right here on the very edge, so I'm going to slow roll around it. Because that lion is sleeping, I don't think we're going to hear any roars. If we could hear their roars, they'd be heard from up to 5 miles away. They use those roars to locate members of their pride and even to warn away other predators. Now we're going to pass by the burrows of warthogs who are hanging by the wall. The warthogs are some of the largest of the burrowing family. They use their tusks to make them, and they have been known to borrow other animals' burrows at times. Warthogs are named for warts on their face that can help you identify their gender. Usually males have about 4 warts, whereas females usually have about 2. As we come around, we're seeing another ostrich, so you can really see their feathers a little bit better this time for those on the right-hand side. Like I said, females are brown and gray, so you can see their eggs right behind them. Because these ostriches are female, they are real eggs. They do truly lay them, and those eggs themselves are super large and super strong. They can take about 250 pounds of force. So like I could stand on the ostrich egg and it wouldn't crack. And each ostrich egg is about 3 pounds each, which is equivalent to about 2 dozen chicken eggs or so. So if you've ever felt a carton of eggs from like Costco, for example, you might know what that feels like. Now we're here in Magadi Glen, which is going to be the newest addition to the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. Around here you're going to see the Warden's Post and some Nigerian dwarf goats. So these goats may appear to be rather small, but for the most part they are adults. They're actually the second of the domesticated species here on the reserve, and they do have a pretty interesting relationship with the land and to the people who help take care of them. I like to call the Nigerian dwarf goats little lawnmowers, and that's because they eat all of the vegetation you see inside, from the grass to the trees. These goats will even eat vegetation other animals cannot, usually because those other animals will get sick or just way too rough for them to chew through. Along with that, the goat's small size does mean they normally don't require as many resources as other domesticated animals. And for folks who take care of the goats, they get a treat in the form of goat's milk, which is super high in nutrition and high in value. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of our safari, but I'm actually going to be dropping you off for our first pick you up, so we have a few more moments together. We have to get past the unload and load areas. In the meantime, I'll actually be telling you about where you can continue checking out animals. That's Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail. While Gorilla Falls is a short walking trail, absolutely feel free to bring in those wheeled devices like strollers and wheelchairs. And for all my wilderness explorers on board, there are 3 badges you can earn by Gorilla Falls. Just keep in mind that the trail closes at 6 today. And around there you're going to see animals like gorillas, underwater viewings of hippos, and even some naked mole rats.
The kids roll up.